So, Dr. Erat, welcome. Lovely to see you here today.
Well, it's great to be here. It's great to see you. After seeing you in Dublin and seeing you in Copenhagen, I'm thrilled to be here in Warsaw with you today.
Well, it's great. And of course, we're here to talk about your work in Switzerland. And of course, your background is in sports medicine. So very interested to understand the differences you may see it between preventative health and your experience in sports medicine.
I'm thrilled to have the possibility and opportunity to build up the Longevity Center in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And it was actually quite a natural transition, I would say, because when you are in prevention, when you are in sports medicine, which I've been in for many, many years, at some point you start asking yourself, particularly when you work with athletes, how can they optimize their performance and optimize their health? So it's not only about avoiding disease or avoiding injury, but to really push it to the next level, because otherwise they do not win the world championships or whatever they are trying to achieve.
Yes.
So it's a very natural transition, actually.
Because it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because, of course, I guess you're working with people over a particular compression of time. There's a point where they're going to be perhaps too old, or whether they're a gymnast and they're in their mid-20s, that starts to be a point where their bodies start to change and so on. Whereas obviously longevity is a much longer journey. So that's quite an interesting move for you, isn't it?
Well, but it depends on the discipline. So you're absolutely right. There are some disciplines where you have to be very young to win a championship. But there are some disciplines where you can really push yourself for a long, long period of time. And I would, for instance, like to highlight like Ironman, triathlon or marathon races. There you can really, at a quite advanced age, really perform very well. And then, of course, sometimes it's not only about getting the gold medal. It's also about being just able to finish a race properly, such as the Ironman race. And for that, you can also do it at 60, 70, 80, even 80, depending on how well you've taken care of yourself and depending on your constitution.
Well, I guess we'll talk about that, I'm sure, because I'm passionate about my sport as well, and I'm in my 50s. But let's talk a little bit about preventative health and longevity, because I think that people get mixed up sometimes really about what is preventative health. And we understand, of course, preventative health is mitigating all those diseases of aging, whereas longevity is it about living to 120? Is it about living older than 120? So how would you define the difference between the two?
Well, traditionally, preventive medicine was really divided into kind of two parts or two sectors. The first one was primary and the other one was secondary. And in the primary prevention, it's really all about avoiding disease.
Right.
That's the traditional classic kind of definition. And in the secondary, you take care of chronic conditions in order to optimize the therapies and treatments in order to really avoid complications and optimize health even in these chronic disease stages. And then, of course, there's also tertiary prevention and so forth, but that's kind of the classic division. Whereas longevity, it's much more about really optimize health and pushing the limits. And, of course, increasing what we call health span, so that you can live healthily in an optimal state for as long as possible. Meaning that if this is your lifespan, you want your health span to get closer and closer to your maximum lifespan so that you really have a high quality of life all the way to the end.
Yeah, and let's talk about your experience in sports medicine and how that applies to longevity. Do you see a crossover between them? You mentioned earlier about people in their 80s doing marathon runs and so on. How are you applying that experience that you've got now to your longevity patients and clients, I guess?
Sure. Well, absolutely, because lifestyle is such a huge part of longevity. And in particular, of course, sleep, nutrition, dieting or fasting, sports, huge. And so, of course, we can learn an immense amount from athletes, and also how to keep fit and avoid overuse injuries, whatever injuries, in order for you to keep on training and keep on being sportive to help to optimize your health and, ultimately longevity. So sport is a huge part of it.
So obviously, I'd imagine when you look at the issues associated with sarcopenia and people's mobility, that's an obvious correlation between sport and longevity. But of course, we are complex beings, and the metabolisms that we have are probably very deeply analyzed with the work that you do. So are you applying that now at a scientific level to looking at your clients' conditions or their potential conditions or their pathways towards conditions to help them with your background in sports medicine?
Absolutely. I mean, we use latest diagnostics as well in the field of longevity to understand a bit better what the potential is, where the client is standing, what's the baseline, and particularly also, as you know, nutrition and nutrigenomics is a big part of. Or how I should say, it's something that really supports when you want to achieve something, when you want to get quicker, stronger, faster, more agile. So this all feeds, of course, directly into sports medicine and to performance. So you can't separate these two things. And it's really great to have these new diagnostic tools as well, and also methods to understand, also in terms of following up on training and following up also on how the development is and the improvement is in an objective fashion through new technologies and new diagnostics.
Yeah, because there's a lot of discussion in the industry at the moment about biomarkers and biological age and the various clocks that are out there. But of course, I would imagine you've got quite complicated and quite progressed biomarkers that you look at from a physiological perspective, whether it's beyond grip strength or things like that. Are you applying some of that science now to helping your everyday clients?
Absolutely, and we're also going to actually try one of these devices today. I hope you're ready for that.
I am so ready for that. Absolutely.
So, and there you can really measure all 5 motoric functions in an objective fashion, and also to kind of motivate. If you're training, you can motivate the person through gamification and game exercising. But if you want to measure the development and also the improvement, you really have objective data and data that you can use to see how the progression is. And so this is something that, of course, we use on a daily basis.
Yeah, and of course we're talking here today in Warsaw in Poland. You're now heading up Switzerland. So you're based in Zurich, is that right?
That's correct. So we're going to build the Longevity Center in other parts of Switzerland as well, but we're starting in Zurich, and it's super exciting because we also have quite a good health system and quite a network all around Zurich. So it's a really an exciting place to be. Also in sports medicine, we're also embedded in a network of sports physicians in Zurich. So it's a good place to start.
Okay, and obviously I'm going to be going through some of the Longevity Centre's clinical protocols while I'm here, but will that be the same in Switzerland? Will you be running a similar protocol or the same, or will you be adapting it to the background that you got with sports medicine?
So we try to take the best out of each geographic region, and we are a bit more focused on sports. But this might also change depending on which center we are going to build up and which location in Switzerland we are going to develop. But the Longevity Center here in Warsaw has done such a tremendous job. So, of course, we want to use as much of this knowledge and the skills and the experience and translate it into our centers in Switzerland. So I guess it's a little bit of a mix of both. So we want to use as much as we can in Switzerland of what has been already built here, very successfully so. But we want to put a bit more emphasis also on sports.
Understood. And of course, you're building a team now, I would imagine.
Correct.
Is your team ready to go, or are you still looking to bring in different skill sets into because obviously you're a clinician, but you're now operating a business as well. So that must be quite an interesting challenge for you.
Well, I think the team is very excited and totally ready to go.
Great.
But that doesn't mean that we're not going to expand and we're not going to take in more diverse kind of expertise as well. But we are definitely ready to go. Okay,
that's good. And as a weekend warrior myself, I'm interested to know what type of clients you'll be seeing. Are there people that are in their 20s and 30s? Are there people in their middle years like me? Are they sports enthusiasts, or are they people that are perhaps boomers or whatever? It's interesting to know what type of clients you're seeing at the moment.
Well, at the moment, I'm still quite focused on athletes because I work for Swiss Ice Hockey Federation. I work with Formula One drivers. I work with Ironman triathletes. I work with used to work with FIFA referees. So of course, I still have that patient or client pool, but we want to translate and learn and draw from this pool and translate it also into other populations. And there are more and more people in their 40s, 50s, even 60s that might have been quite inactive in their earlier life, and they are now, through being more health literate and through changes in the stage of life that they're in, they're getting more and more into exercise and sports. And here we can help a lot to, in a safe and effective fashion, help them to reach their goals without jeopardizing their health. On the contrary, we want to support their health and support their longevity and make them live as long as possible with a health span that's really covering many
because that's interesting,
decades.
isn't it? Because I guess there are a lot of people that have been perhaps executives in multinational organizations that are headquartered in Switzerland and maybe had a very stressful life to the point where they've now retired and they've still got to maximize their runway. I guess that's quite an interesting demographic perhaps you'll be looking to work with.
That's a really great point, because we sometimes forget that people who sit in management teams, they can go through very strenuous kind of regimes, and they're in a way in their own right, they're kind of top athletes in the corporations, and so we really want to support them as well to be able to improve their health and maintain their stamina, maintain their performance, or even improve it. So absolutely. And we have quite a lot of these corporate clients as well that we are now going to see in the next few months. So really exciting times.
Yeah, interesting times. Well, Anna, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and best of luck to you and your team.
Thank you so much. Thank you.